Hi, welcome. It's episode 95 and we're talking about classic science fiction film About Time, which came out in 2013.
Hi, and welcome to Spacebrains, the show where we joy watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya, it's episode 95 and it's time for a classic. This science fiction film is About Time, came out in 2013, written and directed by British filmmaker Richard Curtis. In this episode, we'll reveal what we thought about the film, the ins and outs of narrative and film language, plus a nice deep dive into a specific piece of science that Richard Curtis is proposing.
This is your spoiler warning. We're going to go through all of the spoilers. Turn back now. Watch and the film and then listen to us. We've got to get that in the right order. You can get out of order with these time travel movies.
The preference is to watch the movie first.
Yes.
Play along at home.
But if you really want to, you could listen to it and then go back in time, watch it, and then listen to us again. We still only get one listen that way.
No, that's true.
No.
Keep listening. That's the whole point. But warning, make sure you have watched it or you're willing to be totally spoiled. You're going to be spoiled listening to Spacebrains. So About Time is a science fiction time travel film where Tim, at the age of 21, discovers he can travel in time and change what happens and has happened in his own life. He can only go backwards, he can't go forwards. His decision to make his world a better place is by getting a girlfriend. It's all about love, he says. So what was your number one takeaway from About Time, Surrey?
My number one takeaway from About Time is that I wish Bill Nighy was my dad.
No.
Or at least the character he plays in this.
Yeah, he's so lovely.
He's wonderful.
He is. He's gorgeous.
Another thing about this film that I really thought was worth thinking about is it turns out time travel is not necessary. Isn't that nice?
We sort of we already have the lesson of time travel.
Yes. What we can learn from time travel, we can already do without time travel.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool.
It is
this
cool.
idea, because, there's all the usual sort of thoughts of doing this, that, and the other thing. Go back, kill Hitler, and so on. But this is not about any of that.
Yeah. It's not about making a fortune and sort of living that fantasy.
That's kind of been raised. But I have a feeling, though, that you're going to do pretty well anyway. And that's what this film's about. But Bill Nighy's character, when I was watching this the very first time, watching him and you're going, wow, this is an unusually really nice, supportive dad. And he's just an all-round nice guy.
He is. He's terrific.
But then, of course, you get towards the end of the film and you realise why. Because he can time travel.
Yeah.
And he's learnt the secret to happiness.
Well, he knows to, as you know, as a father as well, like you might get cross and angry at your children and tell them off and blast them and then even regret doing that. Well, he gets the chance to do a do-over, doesn't he? He doesn't have to do that again.
Oh, yeah.
So
well, he could do
it. Can kind of make you happy.
He could do the whole shouting and ranting and having a tantrum, then go back and not.
That's right.
He's got it out of his system.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'll be the proper dad.
That's right.
So that was quite good.
I remember watching this the first time, and to me, like I'd seen Bill Nighy. It's Nighy, isn't it?
Nighy.
Nighy?
Yeah, there's no L.
There's no L. Bill Nighy?
Nighy. Nighy.
Nighy, that's it. Yeah. However you say your name, Bill, please correct us. And he, to me, in this movie, he is the standout acting performance. Like they're all quite strong, but it's just. He's incredible in this.
He's great. He's won BAFTAs for his acting and other things, and it's not surprising.
I know, and I've seen him, and he's in some, he's in Pirates of the Caribbean deliberately because of his acting to play
Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, and but this performance that he puts in this, like he just uses his body so interestingly. His expressions. I mean, he is this lovely man, but there's just something about the acting. It's an acting masterclass, really. Like if you wanted to be an actor or you're a director, watch what he does in this film. So
if only he was Joaquin Phoenix's Joker's dad. instead of whatever dad he had.
Yeah, that's true.
Then it would work.
Yeah,
and what a film. You have the two of them acting in a film together. It wouldn't be called Joker then. It would actually be a successful stand-up comedian.
Yeah, that's right. They would kind of make a good father-son combo, but, like now that I'm just looking at their because they've both got big cheekbones. Probably the rest is a little bit different, but that you could see that he could be his father.
Oh, well, that's...
There you go. We're casting roles here, sorry.
Scoop.
Spacebrains Productions. We're in the casting mode.
That's it.
And we would get the movie greenlit if we could sign those two guys.
It would be called Joker About Time.
That's right. It's a good one.
Yes.
What if the Joker had a father that was like Bill Nighy from About Time?
Yeah. How would he turn out?
That's
different?
it.
Yes. Okay, there you go. So is this hope, warning, or an experiment?
It's very hopeful. It's very lovely, this film, as you were just talking about Bill Nighy being a nice father. It is a very hopeful film, but it is, to me, an experiment. It's a what if, again, the same as what we had last week with Radius was a real ultimate what if. What if a man had a 15-metre death ray around him? The same with this. Like, what if when you turn 21, you could travel back in time? Like, what would you do? How would you fix your future? And it's so cool in this story how Richard Curtis has, that scene where Bill Nighy actually tells his son, and he's like, oh, all the men in the family can travel through time. He actually, basically the rules are explained there in 30 seconds, aren't they? It's like, well, you can travel back in time. You can't travel into the future, and you can only go back to where you've been.
Yeah, and I know what you're thinking, win the lottery or something.
Win lotto, yeah.
No, you don't want to go down that way as Uncle so-and-so did,
right. And it's like, totally why? Mad. And he goes, well, you don't even need to explain it. Like, I loved that really quickly. It's like, the rules are explained.
Yes, and of course the difficulties are sort of blown away because it's like, you can only travel in your own lifetime.
Yeah.
You can't go forward.
And you kind of got to go to real places.
Yeah, you've got to be able to remember them.
Know of them. You can't just, I suppose in their case, come to Australia if they've never really been to Australia, I suppose. Yeah. So I thought it was that experiment idea. So what if, what would you do if you could travel back in time?
I think so. I think it's sort of an experiment, not just that, but it was particularly focusing on sort of happiness and relationships. How would your relationship with your father be?
Yeah.
Or with, your wife, your kids, your friends?
Yeah.
How would that be if you could travel through time?
Yeah.
What if you were focusing on how you can have a good life, whatever that means, and you can travel through time? Because it's sort of a question we've all thought about. As you said, you do something, you regret it, and you go, if only. Well, what if you could? What would you do? How would that change? How could you, in fact, make your life better?
Yeah, and I mean, like for myself, when I was 18, I had a head-on collision that wasn't my fault in a car, and I remember driving down that highway, and I came to a point in the road where I could have turned right, and quite often I turned right, but for the reason of why I was driving, I thought, I'll go straight ahead. Have this horrific head-on collision where I'm taken to hospital and all that kind of stuff. But aftermath was, why didn't I turn right? Like, if I could travel back in time, I'd turn right. But then you would be a totally different person. It's that butterfly effect. It's the ripple effect, isn't it? It's like that would have mean I wouldn't have had that experience I had of being taken by ambulance to emergency and being in emergency all day and strapped up and having x-rays and things like that. Like, you wouldn't have gone through that actual experience, good or bad. But so your life would be different. Your outlook would be different because that definitely changed the way I looked at things.
Yes.
So, so it's an interesting what if, I reckon. And the ultimate, again, these like what ifs that story can hypothetically take us on a journey. Time travel, because it's a movie. Why not? It's a novel. Let's talk about time travel. Let's go into outer space, whatever. So is this the first time you've seen it?
No, this is the third time I've seen it, I think. Yeah. Something along those lines. It's one of my wife's favourite films.
Yeah, mine too, actually.
I very much enjoy it. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it all that much when I first watched it because I was looking at this, Richard Curtis. It's got Bill Nighy in it. There's some guy who was in Harry Potter, and it's it looks like a romantic comedy, which I'm a bit lukewarm to.
Yeah.
Some of them are okay, some of them are kind of not. And the guy, Richard Curtis, he wrote Love Actually, which also had, Bill Nighy and Hugh Grant. It's just, I think, that fella.
Yeah, the bubbling.
Yes, and I was surprised.
Yeah.
Because I watched it. It's not a romantic comedy with a tinge of science fiction. I think it's a science fiction with a tinge or a romantic comedy in there.
Yeah.
It comes close to, but defies a number of the genre's sort of expectations of both a science fiction and a romantic comedy.
Definitely. Yeah.
Because the biggest one that I got out of this, which is why I like watching this film, is it turns out to be quite a cozy film. Like it comes close to various disasters and you're expecting them to happen. So a time travel film that's science fiction, inevitably you have the dire consequences of altering the past.
Yes.
And Back to the Future.
Yep.
For example, he bumps into his mum and almost wipes himself out of existence. A Delicate Sound of Thunder, you step on a butterfly and you come back to a totalitarian fascist regime or something.
Yeah.
But in this one, he never really particularly suffers from it. Like he has some close calls and some encounters in the film which makes him go, "Oh, I've got to be a little bit more careful about this." And he learns valuable lessons from it.
Yeah.
But without the gut punch of having your legs sawn off or something dreadful, And likewise, the romantic comedy side of things, he comes close to a couple of the standard tragedies that occur there, where you'd expect a midpoint or the all is lost moment, and it pulls itself back from there and goes a different direction.
Yeah. So there's nice surprises.
And so by the time you get to the end of the film, I just sort of feel smooth and comfortable, but having learned something and experienced something worthwhile.
And just wanting to give old Daddy Bill a big cuddle.
Bill cuddle. Yeah. So that's why, and I think that's why this really is a bit of a classic in that you watch it and it's science fiction, but it leads you away from the science fiction parts at the right moments and goes towards a bit of a romantic comedy, but it doesn't get too stuck in that, and it plays up on some of the tropes you're expecting, but then subverts those ideas. So fantastic. How many times have you seen this?
Probably about the same. Again, it's one of my wife's favourite films. So I said to her, you have to watch this Spacebrains film, because quite often she doesn't. So, she was thrilled to do this. And it is one that you and I had talked about previously when we talk about classics. And I think that's the thing. I have seen it 3, or maybe this was even the 4th. I think this might have been my 4th time. Likewise, romantic comedies, I don't mind sometimes. They're not something that I go hunting, I guess, but they can be quite clever, and they fall. I like the ones that fall outside the box a bit, and I think I agree with what you're talking about here, that this does bend the genres, both of them. It mixes. It's one that's really evident that it's 2 genres mixed together, but there is these plot points that go in unexpected directions.
Yeah.
So I think I think also although it's all about, and he says it's always going to be about love. Like it's not about winning the lottery. It's not about fixing history or anything like that. Yeah. For him, or the best job ever, he was going to kind of live his life. It's going to be all about love. And so, you could sit at that point and go, oh, okay, so it's a love story, but does time travel. But in fact, then where Richard Curtis takes us on another adventure is that really the love story is not that complicated, which is the normal love story, isn't it? That you have those tropes of, they fall in love and everything's going great. But then in fact, it turns out that he was kind of lying to her about the job he had, and therefore she doesn't like liars, and they break up, and now he's got to kind of get her back or whatever. Is that traditional romantic comedy? But then in this one, you're expecting that, but no. Once they kind of get together, the story then goes back to the time travel. So it's about his sister, and it's about his dad, and it's about his family, and then it comes back to the love story. So there's those twists and turns. They still really hit the beats that we like to talk about in this film, but there's, twists to the story that are really unexpected. And I think then also the sci-fi element of time travel is then kind of embedded in that sweet romantic family love that this film does talk about. Like, you talk about Bill being really nice, but they kind of are all a bit nostalgically, because they're all like nostalgically in love with each other, aren't they?
Yes.
It's a real familiar love. And because even Dom Gleeson, the main character, like he even's like, oh, my sister is wacky and wild, but that's kind of why I really like her, you know?
Yeah.
Which, of course, another brother could be like, oh, I hate my sister, you know what I mean? And or we've just got an okay
She's
relationship.
a crazy drama queen.
Yeah, you know, so, but that's not the way he looks at it. So, yeah, I liked how they did that, and it's kept me wanting to go back. And, I mean, my wife has a good cry about 2/3 the way through this film, which she enjoys. For me, it's like, oh, yeah, there's definitely an emotional beat there, which is really sad, but I kind of then look at the whole, that message that the film is saying is that, yeah, like you don't need time travel to live in the moment, you know, which is kind of the point, isn't it? You know, that you can just be in the moment, and that's as good as it gets. You don't need to go back in time if you really sit down and appreciate what you have in that beat.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's something that I will probably watch again and again because of my wife loving it so much. But it is a very enjoyable experience to watch this film.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as it came on Netflix, yeah, we get the little opening home screen comes up, and it came up on that. Yeah, my wife was like, "Oh, we're gonna watch that again.
Watch it.
Yep, let's go."
Why is this then a sci-fi? We're talking then about the genres. What makes it a sci-fi?
Oh, this is to continue our thoughts here. This story couldn't be told without time travel.
Right.
Like, you could tell similar stories, but the thing with science fiction, and I think we brought this up before, maybe not directly, but science fiction allows you to take some element of a story and then push it to an extreme level. This is the fiction part of it. Because you can sort of say, okay, what's the science of happiness? We can explore that a little bit. What's the science of social relationships? We can explore that a little bit. And that there's lots of movies that do that, but they're not science fiction. Science fiction allows you to go, well, you know, what's the nature of sort of happiness and relationships? Let's add in the fact that you can travel in time freely and easily and without particular consequence. You know, but the goal, and so you've got this extreme element. You're pushing beyond the normal boundaries into science fiction, as opposed to just a psychological study or a romantic comedy. And I think that's what makes this one here. There's no explanation of the time travel.
No.
In fact, Bill's character, what's his name? Tom? No, Tim is the son.
Yeah.
Whatever his name is. Let's just keep calling him Bill Nighy's character.
Kill him, Dad.
Dad actually says, don't know why or what or how. It's just we can.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just when you're 21, you can travel in time.
Yeah.
And I do like science fiction that doesn't try to push any particular explanation. It's the same with Radius. There was just a lightning bolt out of space. You know, what was it? Who knows? We'd have to ask the NASA guys if they had any idea. You know, it's just it's a bit of a hand wave. No need to go into it because it's not important.
No.
What's important is the outcome. Like if it was an alien encounter film, like if we were doing a film version of Rendezvous with Rama, which is about an alien spaceship entering Earth's orbit, yeah, you sort of want to explore and you know, how did it get here? What's the propulsion mechanism? What's its purpose? You know, where's it headed? All these sorts of questions, because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
But this, not about that.
Nope.
This is about the science of happiness, and it's explored through the fiction of time travel.
Very good. And so speaking of time travel, are you up to any time travel yourself in your creative projects?
Yes. I have decided that my story that I've been reworking, I was going to swap these bad guys around, but I decided actually, having read through it and looked at the way it's sort of structured and moving along, I'm going to introduce a third bad guy.
Oh, okay.
Like
throw it in.
Yeah, reduce the input of one of them, and so because the relationship going there is actually working quite well.
Right.
The other interesting thing there is I've noticed that my writing is quite sparse and to the point.
Okay.
And talking with my wife about, for example, we're talking about high school. My daughter's going to high school now this year. And so we're talking about memories of high school. And I sort of said, I remember the lessons I took. I remember writing a lot of notes, and I can remember those notes. So I can tell you about the geology and the physics and the chemistry I learned there, and a lot of the maths, and I started the computer club there, and so on. Mm-hmm. And what about your teachers? I could name my one science teacher, and that's it. And then, what about the people you went to school with? Like, there were people in my class. Absolutely, there were. I can name 2 of them, 3 of them. I can name 3 of them out of like 4 years or 6 years of going from year 7 to year 12. Yeah. With 30 kids in a classroom, swapping subject. I can name maybe 3 of them. It wasn't what I was paying attention to. Yeah. And I was reading my writing, and I'm going, it's the same here. Like I'm interested in the plot. Yep. And getting to these points, and so my writing goes straight there. And I'm reading a bit of the what's his name, Peter Hamilton. Mm-hmm. He's wrote a great series of things, but I'm reading one of his stories, and I've noticed that he sort of spends time in a character, and explores their thoughts, and there's stuff which isn't entirely plot based, like it's character requirement, it's characterization, but it's kind of luxuriating in the character for a bit, because in a written form, you've got plenty of time for that. On an hour and a half, science fiction romantic comedy, you kind of do have to get a little bit to the points. Otherwise, people wonder whether Batman's ever going to fight Superman. Just, my little dig there at the Batman vs Superman, which goes for 3 hours, however long it is, and doesn't seem to actually have them fighting. At least not until the last 10 minutes. I don't know, it is crazy. I didn't watch that far. So that's sort of what I've learnt about my writing and
cool.
what I'm doing there. So it's quite good.
That sounds like a really great practical observation of your work, and then you can decide what you want to do with that going into the future. Then.
I do like the bits where I'm on the plot points. I do them quite well. But what I need to cover off more is sort of personal wise. Like, it's that whole show don't tell. I've got a show, so she goes after this because she's trying to help her friend. It's okay. Well, that's nice. But we can't just assume, why on earth is she trying to help? Why is this person her friend? Why is she trying to help them? Does she have a history of that? You go, well, it's not important for the plot. Like, we can accept that she does like her friend. And you go, yeah, sure. But so I sort of need to explore that more. What is the, get a bit more stakes involved. So that people go, oh, you really do need this friend. She's very important to you. It's not just a passing thing. It's not just a normal friendship. This is important friendship, capital I. So that's what I thought.
Interesting. And I mean, it's one of those funny things of, I really do think about, which to me is a terrific book series, is, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh, yes.
And, he breaks a lot of rules in that book of what other writers will say makes a good book. But he seems to break the rules, and it's okay. But I was just thinking what you were saying there, that you have those 2 key characters in that storyline, Lisbeth, Salander, is it? By memory. And I'm going to totally now forget the journalist guy's name. And if you wrote down their characterizations and their descriptions, there's no reason why they should be in the same room together, if that makes sense. But then his journey and the things that he is lacking, she fulfills in the storyline. So in the investigation of their crime, it kind of takes, of the crimes they do in that story, it takes both of those characters, everything both characters have, to actually solve those crimes. Like, one would have never actually solved it. He fulfills her emptiness, and then she fulfills his emptiness in the way detectives solve a crime. Like, I think that's why that is so powerful, those books, is that the 2 of them come together to actually work, And even when you were talking about, I was just thinking about time, that, Mary as a character makes sense that she does fall in love with Tim, and Tim falls in love with her. Like, they're both a bit quirky, they're both a bit nerdy, they're both they're both looking for love maybe in the wrong places, but they do fit together, don't they? Like Mary's friend would not have fit with Tim.
No.
And Tim would not have fit with her, you know what I mean?
Or with Charlotte.
Or with Charlotte, who was kind of who he wanted to be with. And again, really nice little plot point in this story that she returns and he's like realizes he doesn't want to be with her, you know? Which again would be a very cliched example that in another romantic comedy he would go and sleep with her and ruin the relationship, right? So, yeah.
Awesome. And yourself?
Yes, I'm developing this feature script. This last couple of weeks I've had to change a job and had a little bit of downtime there with the kids before the change of the job. So a little bit out of whack with the routine. But I'm going to get really into writing solidly very soon. The beat board idea is there. I've vomited all over it in terms of like a real brainstorm of ideas. I've vomited words on it.
Yes.
Not chunks of chicken. And so now it's ready to kind of come off and be deciphered in some of its craziness because I have put some weird anecdotes on there. But yeah, it's really calling to me. And I think ultimately as well as a filmmaker, it's time not necessarily to just go out and make a feature, but it's definitely time to take that next logical step, which is possibly a low budget feature. Excuse me, but also just I feel like this one is really fitting into probably the artiste that I want to be, and this is the story that I would like to tell, and probably realizing that the idea in this film is the theme that I want to explore a bit more. You know what I mean? Richard Curtis, if you do look at the types of films, like you said, Love Actually is another really big film of his. But even his other ones, I mean, he is in this romantic genre, isn't he?
Yes, he's got a number of them there.
Yeah, so he's got a number of them. So this is obviously a theme he wants to explore.
Yes.
So it's the same with me. So it's like realising, okay, there might be a theme here that I want to explore. And that's something I've been working on for a few months. And now I think this story is ready to come out. So, yeah, I'm really super excited. I've kind of hatched a bit of a calendar plan to sit down and actually really write and pull it out. Yeah.
I'll see if we can manage it.
Yeah, in the coming months. So, yeah, hopefully each time we meet, there's some of those milestones are being met. Film festival-wise, Spacebrains is returning for 2023.
Yes, I've got myself a writer all ready to go for the workshop there.
Awesome.
Once I get a contract signed, then we'll announce it and there'll be some social media action going on.
Alex Proyas is not attending. So we can say Alex Proyas. Alex Proyas, if you're Googling this podcast in the future. His people were very excited by the thought of Spacebrains, but can't promise that he'd be available at that point in time, so he will not be actually attending the 2023 festival. Future festivals, who knows?
But yes, said keep in touch.
Keep in touch. They're
which is always nice.
Yeah, and they did congratulate Spacebrains on what we've done and achieved so far. So at least we're on their radar, which is a good thing.
That is very cool.
Yeah, so we'll be moving on to a couple other really cool sci-fi Australian filmmakers that hopefully we can get to come to the festival. So haven't got any other confirmations at this point in time, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks we will.
We have a screening and red carpet venue.
Yeah.
The Reading Cinemas.
Awesome, in Mandurah.
Yes, in Mandurah. So if you are a filmmaker who's submitted, if you haven't, then submit. If you have, and you can make it down for the screenings, you'll get to see it in an actual honest-to-goodness cinema.
Yep.
There'll be banners and posters up. You get your walk-on in there, get some photos.
Awesome.
It'll be a wonderful experience to be able to sit in a real cinema with the sticky floor and the popcorn smell and watch your film. That's
right, yeah. So we're excited about that as well. So, yeah, there's finishing touches coming to the festival and we'll announce and more. And stay tuned. Obviously, follow on socials to keep up touch. If you haven't made your film yet, get cracking. Get it done right now.
Get those last finishing touches in and submit.
Because there will be closing in, it's about March, is it? I think March, end of March, something like that. Submissions close. March, April. Check out Film Freeway for the date. Pretty soon. It's getting closer and closer. We're going to have the fun of sitting down and watching all those movies again that we did last year. It was cool.
We got a submission from Iran. this year.
Awesome.
Which is interesting because we can't they can't pay because banking isn't allowed, where there's this embargoes. But the fellow actually sent me a link of his trailer and the full film. And so I had a quick look at it, and it's a lovely dystopian science fiction animation.
Cool.
It's one of these ones without any speaking in it.
Yeah.
So it's like it's all done through action and sound and visuals and music.
Yeah, right. Awesome.
And I thought, gee, that's really good. So yes, he's come along that one because I get people asking them. Yeah, and it's just like I would like to have a free entry, please.
Yeah.
And you look over it and there's no links anywhere. There's no information about them. It's just it's a pro forma thing. This guy personally spoke to me, gave me his, the link, responded to my email very quickly.
Good start.
So I'm like, okay, this is a genuine fellow.
Yep.
Yeah,
for sure.
So yeah, if you're in, Iran or I guess Russia or someplace and you're having trouble, don't be afraid to reach out, but make sure you do know that we are a science fiction film festival and, demonstrate that you genuinely want to participate and you're not just trying to get freebies.
Yes.
There you go.
Sounds good. Stay tuned for more. Follow to learn more about it. Okay, so let's move into the plot and some of the other key parts of film film language and codes and conventions, and we've touched on a few things, but we'll kind of pick on some other bits throughout: camera, lighting, sound, those sorts of things, a little bit about social commentary, whatever we think in regards to About Time. As we mentioned, this was written and directed by Richard Curtis, great British filmmaker, kind of in that realm of romantic comedies. Love Actually is a Christmas romantic comedy film.
Yes.
It's a go-to film, blockbuster, British film that I think gets shown around Christmas time probably.
He's
everywhere.
also the writer of things like Blackadder, Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
A lot of, comedy there. Wasn't another one of those British comedies other than Bean and Blackadder? Anyway.
Yeah, he's done a whole range of stuff.
He's got some great writing credits.
He does. Yeah, it's fantastic. We have Domhnall Gleeson, who, now is a superstar. Is in all sorts of films. With the Star Wars recent series he was in. But yeah, all sorts of films he's been around in TV. This was a big breakout role for him.
He was in Harry Potter with his dad.
Yeah, Harry Potter.
He's won awards for his stage work.
Yep.
He's a bit of a stage actor.
We mentioned Bill Nighy, who to me I'd known and seen, but this film really resonated with me, and he's a superstar. Rachel McAdams as well, American actor who's been in a whole bunch of stuff. Still remember Mean Girls as a standalone. And interesting enough, pretty similar timing, she is in The Time Traveler's Wife with Eric Bana, which is a sci-fi time travel romantic comedy as well. Well, actually, no, it's not a comedy.
I was going to say, I didn't.
It's a romantic drama. Yeah, there's not the comedy. So that's kind of the serious version of this film in a way.
Okay.
But it's a bit different again. But yeah, that she's in both those films. Pretty similar timing as well. I think that came out a couple of years before this one. And Margot Robbie stars in this, which I don't think I realised who she really was when I saw this the first time.
No, well, 2013, she wasn't kicking her Suicide Squad chops.
No.
Because that I think is really what sort of has brought attention is her Harley Quinn.
And, I, Tonya as well was her dramatic. I'm not sure if she won an Oscar or was nominated for that, but that was before. That was her big breakout American role.
That got her some superhero roles.
That got her the critical success, which led to the commercial success of Harlequin or whatever. Yeah, and so forth from there. But before this, she'd been a huge star in Neighbours here in Australia, but that wasn't something I watched. So the British probably cast her from that, because they do love Neighbours and Home and Away over there.
Absolutely.
And what I love to see with this is a $12 million budget and a return was $88.5 million. That's a pretty healthy return in my mind.
I was reading they were looking for a fancy time travel special effect because they're going for that, and they looked at their concepts and they just went, you know what, it doesn't really suit it because we're not trying to, do a Back to the Future here. We've got something
we don't
flashy.
need a DeLorean.
So they just went, we'll just have him go in a cupboard.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it might have even been a bit of a nod towards Doctor Who.
Get in a box.
Doctor Who just walks into a nondescript box, and there you go. There's nothing too flashy.
It's interesting you say that, because the tone of the film, it's suited that he just went into a dark space. And I think he says a great line, like, cupboards are great, toilet at a pinch. It's a very British way of explaining, just somewhere that's a bit quiet. You'll be fine.
Quiet and private, yeah.
So we do like to break down the narrative into some common elements that you can find from all good story and script writing teachers. Some of them are Campbell, Snyder, McKee and Field. Basically, where there is a 3-act structure. This is nothing new. Shakespeare did this 3-act structure, but breaking it a little bit deeper into some key moments and what some people call beats and scenes. I think beats are always a bit more important, because beats are those, what we say, emotional beats. So it's not just a plot point. It's something actually is turning on a dime, as they say.
Yeah.
So to demonstrate, we always like to give examples of these 3-act structure. And I will start tonight, where we open image is coming in on a big office building, and there's a hard-working perfectionist.
Oh, dear.
Single mum who loves her job. She's working in the field she's always wanted to work in. Suddenly the boss calls her in and fires her. That's not the inciting incident. This has all happened in the first couple of minutes of the film.
Yeah, this is just a bit of characterization.
This is just like, oh my God, we've met this woman. She's really great. She loves her job, and bang, she's fired.
Oh,
right?
No.
As she's walking out with her stolen box of stationery,
yes,
out onto the street, she's confronted by a portal.
Ooh, what sort of portal? That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, and so to me, that would be the inciting incident, is now there's this portal on this city street.
It is that point where, if I was watching this film, that's the point where I'd go, oh, this story is going to be about, does she see something through that portal? Maybe we get a glimpse of what maybe is on the other side of the portal.
Yeah, and I mean, that's where I'll just leave that a little bit open. But to me, the portal, so this is what we mean by some beats. So we've had the setup, this woman. Then we've had a little bit of, talking about who she is. We see that she's a perfectionist. We're finding out she's a single mum. Maybe even just a photo on the desk of her kids. Maybe she abuses men to her colleagues, whatever, right? Loving her job, and then shock horror, fired. So this is what we call the setup. But then the actual walking out, and she's devastated. What am I going to do with my life now? And here is this portal. The portal is the example of an inciting incident. It's like, and what does she do? Does she walk into the portal, or does she run screaming for her life?
Well, see, I would suggest initially she would avoid it, because it's this shock.
Yeah.
This is a call to adventure. If you're going to look at the hero's journey, you get call to adventures. She's like, what am I going to do with things? The bottom of her box full of stationery has dropped out, and her favorite world's greatest architect, because she's an architect apparently, mug breaks. And, so then that's symbolic of her changing life, is like smash,
broken dreams.
Broken. Yeah. And there's this portal, and she suddenly jumps back, and she's going to be going, holy crap.
Yeah.
And she'll back away from it. Maybe she'll yell for people, but people just sort of see some crazy woman with, holding a broken box, and maybe she's spilled her coffee on herself. Yeah. So she's kind of looking a bit disreputable. Yeah. And people are going, oh, okay, I'm just going to ignore this person who's clearly having a bad day. I don't want to be dragged in this bad day. And so this is the debate, of course, is where she's sitting there, and she'll look and she'll go, I can't, this is too much.
Don't go into the portal.
She sees something in the portal, and she'll look across the street at the bus. It's just starting, the bus you'd catch home is just starting to pull up. And so she can see, okay, that's my home.
Yep.
Let's go continue on with whatever this so-called life is that I have.
Yep.
That she's suddenly realised not so great. Or she can look in the portal, and in the portal, actually, maybe she sees something else, like maybe a spaceship or something. We can't tell quite what it is just yet. Pull up. So it's almost a mirror of, like, I can take that transport, or I can take that transport.
And maybe at the same time, some people are walking into the portal.
Oh,
and some people are not.
Some people are ignoring it altogether.
They're running away from it, screaming. Maybe even the police rock up and they're not sure whether they should fire their guns on it or not. And so this is the choice. She's got the choice. This is the debate.
And someone is going to try and grab her and pull her back.
Yep.
So, because that's going to force a decision.
Yeah,
she can't just stand there forever. Someone's going to grab her and say, "Come on, quick! You've got to get away."
And this could be the commotion: is that now everyone's come out. So maybe her fellow architects have come out, the ones that we saw earlier. Maybe her boss, and is like, "Well, you can't go into the portal.
You'll be throwing your life away if you go in that portal." And that's where she realized. She looks down at her broken best architect mud, and she goes, "I don't have a life here.
I've lost my life."
Because she's this workaholic perfectionist. She jumps through that portal.
Yeah.
And this is, of course,
Act 2.
Act 2. She's chosen Act 2, which is an important point. You need that point where the hero decides that they're going to go on that journey.
Right.
Because we're with them.
Yeah.
And we want them to do it.
Yeah. If she just gets the bus and goes home.
It's a one-act movie.
It's a one-act story, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So she's jumping in and she's chosen Act 2, and this is the fun and games. This is where we're going to explore what it means to go into this portal, what this thing, this vehicle she saw pulling up.
Yeah.
And she's going to get on board. What does that mean? And what are these crazy people? What about the other people that went through this portal as well?
That's right.
And that's where we're going to have most of our adventure.
Yeah.
Is in this Act 2, in the fun and games.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, she does. She goes in there, and she jumps on this passing hover vehicle that shoots her off across a landscape, and she crawls into the back like it's a open tray back, and there's some other bewildered looking city people going, "Holy crap!"
Yeah, where are we?
And we maybe get a bit of a conversation here and go like, do you know where we're going? And there's no, I don't know where we're going. Maybe she'll probably rant at them. What the hell are you doing? Just jumping through a portal? You don't know where you're going. What's going on? So someone says, "Well, okay, wise guy, why are you here?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Because my other options sucked too hard."
That's right.
And everyone sort of, there's that quiet pause where everyone just kind of looks at each other as they all realize that's actually why they're all here too.
Yeah.
But, there's probably a couple of different characters here that we'll play around with, and we'll probably, if it's that sort of film, we're going to kill one of them off.
Yeah.
Because we've got to make it serious. The fun and games has to come to an end.
It does. So maybe on that fun and games, it's also that, this is an alien planet and there's alien creatures, friendly and foe, and, the environment is a bit different. We've got to kind of work out that she was a perfectionist. So here, does the perfectionism, does that kind of work in her favor, or does it not work? Does she get to rely upon her engineering skills?
I see. I think initially
do they come out and so
it would work in her favor, because this is the whole thing about the midpoint.
Yeah,
is like she'll continue her same actions.
Yes.
So she'll start organising the people that she's with.
Yeah.
She'll gets to some settlement where there's there's a water wheel that's not working very well,
and she can fix it.
Everyone seems to be satisfied that it is, and she goes, no, this, and so she goes and fixes it, and she's a bit of a celebrity for that.
That's right. She's successful.
Turns out that what she was in trouble for in the past is helping her here until we get to the midpoint, because the midpoint is where things turn.
Yeah.
And this is where we need to, because we can't just have it all success and then. Again, that's a 1.5 act film.
That's right.
So instead, we get to the point now where she's standing there in front of the crowd being praised for her fixing of the water wheel, and that's all really good. But then the other people that she was trying to help sort of turn up, and she'd left them behind on the truck, and they've had to walk all the way back. And they accuse her of she took the water. And, she kind of knew she shouldn't at the time, but it didn't seem that important. And now, her reward is stripped away from her, because it turns out she's not a hero.
No.
She took the water from the people who were trying to, get by as well.
Yeah. Well, and maybe it's that by fixing the water wheel, it's actually benefited this community but disadvantaged the next community, because now there's no water the water's flowing too fast down the river. And
they're coming up with war on mind, and so now we're going to get like a cool battle scene.
That's it.
But it's a bit of devastation.
Yeah.
And that, she's getting chased not only by the guys invading because they've had their water taken off them, but then the place that she thought she was helping, they're sort of mad at her. They're like, they see her and they go to chase her. So she's been, the bad guys are closing in at this point. So everything she thought she'd built up is starting to break down.
Yeah, and this is where one of her fellow travellers would probably die, because we'd have a nice death scene.
Oh, yes. We need a rock bottom where she crawls up out of, having jumped off a cliff and swum through a river, fought off a skinny killerfish, crawled up on the bank, and she realised that everything she had done was all wrong. She's killed someone.
And that boss that fired her was right.
Yes, oh my God.
So she's kind of worse off now than she was when she got fired and walked into the portal. So everything she's done has been wrong. So this is that bottoming out, side of the road, no money in your pocket, and it's raining.
Yeah.
And she's on this planet and it's raining gum nuts onto her head or something.
Oh, no, honky nuts
really
on
bloody
your head.
hurting.
That's ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done...
Wishing that she'd never gone through the portal.
Yeah, she'd never have gone through that portal.
And maybe this is really a good example that, here's another portal. Portal back.
Portal back.
So does she go into the portal and just go back because you just keep doing what she's always done? Or does she stay and realise the lesson that she's learnt is she needs to let go of perfectionism?
She needs to work with other people and let them do it. She needs
to work with other people, yeah.
And this guy who died, and she watched him die, he had a sister. A sister, you say? Yes, there's another one with a force. No, a sister who she saw had been, taken captive, but a sister tried to talk to her earlier about what she was doing.
Yeah. And
so she goes, okay, I've got to, I've let this guy die. I've let this community get attacked. I've got to save her.
Yeah.
So that's Act 3 is coming to that.
That is Act 3. Once she makes that decision, I'm not going to go in the portal. I'm going to go save this other, we're going to work as a team. We're going to come back. So she gets back to the woman, pleads for forgiveness, explains that she's got a plan, and maybe those other people that were on that vehicle that we talked about before, who are all kind of lost and dishevelled and don't trust her. She's the only little beam of light, and she's got some sort of action plan to go back to the, back into the belly of the beast, so to speak, and say to them, hey, I did build you that water wheel. You can trust me. I'm going to build you something else, but I'm not just going to build it. We're going to build it.
And that's the key, is that everyone's expecting is, here you are. You're going to take our water. You're going to fix the water wheel. You're going to have one of us killed again. That's not. But she's turned around and she's realised, no, other people have got to be involved, even though they may not do it the same way I do it.
And she might turn to that woman, the sister character, and say, in fact, she's got the idea. And everyone's a bit shocked with that. She's giving over her power to someone else.
Oh, and then they just enact the idea, and it works perfectly.
No.
Act 3 never works that way, does it? There's always a hiccup. There's something turns around.
They do work well together. That's got to work. She's let go of perfectionism. She's learnt this new skill, and guess what? The team does work well. They build some sort of warring device out of those gum nuts I was telling you about.
Oh man, a gum nut flinger.
This other party that's coming in, these other creatures that are ready for a fight club. They're coming in for a battle, but they're not expecting this new gum nut leaf blower machine thing, and bam, they're hit. But they can't fall over that easily. They've got to win a bit of the battle, don't they?
They some of them actually have like bike helmets on, because
that's right.
When I'm riding my bike, sometimes I go under a tree and the little gum nuts
do hit you. Yeah,
they hit me through the little gaps in the helmet, but other times they don't.
And this is where she is now working as a team member, but realizes that, she could use some of her engineering craft.
Yeah, she does have some powers.
And maybe that water wheel she fixed up could accelerate the gum nuts if the rest of the team agree with it.
Yes.
And so she's kind of mixing those two things together. And just when they're about to get overridden, she helps that other woman character to use the water wheel as the ultimate device.
The ultimate device of catapulting small deadly things.
And they defeat them.
They defeat them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty good then. It's she fixes the water wheel so it allows enough water through to the other civilization, the other settlement too.
Yeah.
And then we get a final image then. It's got to be a bit of a bookend then of her opening image where she's in an office tower. So maybe we can have her in a building in the settlement, which is like got people architecting and engineering away in it. Mm-hmm. And initially it's going to zoom in on her just alone at her desk.
Yep.
And then it'll probably pan a little bit and we'll see that actually she's not alone at her desk.
No.
She's got a team of other people sitting around the same table, and then she puts her idea in and then people discuss it and she listens.
And maybe she's actually teaching. So it's like, the ultimate, like, other people are like, this is an idea. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's a good idea. Like bringing on these other people's ideas. The end.
The end. Credits.
That's it. Credits roll.
And scene.
End scene.
Yes, it's wonderful. So, I mean, I hope you sort of get a bit of an idea of these beats to go through. And we'll take this through when we're going to discuss now the exact same beats. Now, we're going to talk about time and how it fits in there and how Richard has managed to make use of, his camera and his audio and, told his story using these beats.
So one thing with the camera for this whole film is that it's kind of point of view shot, so handheld camera. It's not super shaky like we're in a war, like Saving Private Ryan, or when we saw Edge of Tomorrow, Tom Cruise, which is a time travel loop movie. Go back and listen to that and watch that movie if you have a chance. But it's not so much point of view handheld cameras in to make us vomit, but it's definitely very intimate. So he uses that handheld camera throughout the whole film consistently to probably just bring us into the, like we're having an intimate relationship for this whole movie, I would say.
And I think what I noticed also is a lot of eye level sort of camera work. So you do get the feeling that you're in observing it.
You're in there with them.
None of these sort of sweeping drone shots or big establishing shots.
No.
That sort of would try to indicate grandeur or loneliness or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think like what I was saying before about the family love in this film, like I think that's the thing. Like he's tried to settle us into this family, like we are a family member. So we're there. They go on the beach and they have tea and biscuits and sandwiches that take far too long, and we're just sitting there with them, right? Like, so, and even when we do get to that climax scene, it's us watching the father and the son. We're on the beach with them, sort of thing. So yeah, there's this whole shakiness, but as I said, not to the extremity of a horror film shakiness like Blair Witch or Edge of Tomorrow, high action war scenes where you want to be a soldier, but it's definitely point of view as in the whole movie's a bit moving. And maybe there's also a bit of symbolism there, fluid movement, like time is, not fluid, right? But the perception of time is fluid.
Yes. That's quite nice.
So we also have this voiceover from Tim who, look, voiceovers can really shit me. They can really shit me to tears. But this voiceover is really great because he doesn't give us exposition. He gives us like what he is. He's giving us the expectations of his character, and there's a big difference there. So he's not just telling us what we're being shown also on the screen. He's actually kind of giving us this kind of bigger understanding of him as a character. And the way that he describes people and the way that he describes himself, like that's what he's doing there, and it complements, it doesn't juxtapositions what we're seeing actually on screen. It's not annoying.
No, I found it quite soothing. Like it blends in well, so much so that when you just now said, it has this voiceover, I thought, it does. I remember there's a few sort of montagey bits during the film where he discusses stuff. Yeah. Whilst we're being shown something.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. So yes, indeed.
So this whole setup is really Tim. He grows up in Cornwall. He's got this really loving father, James is the James, and mother Mary. And he's got this weird absent-minded uncle Desmond and this free-spirited younger sister, Catherine, or Kit Kat, which is a great name. We are shown at the beginning like a New Year's Eve party, which, as we were just saying, the tea and biscuits. We kind of get in a way, a montage of family life. It's quirky, but I mean, you see so much of him, like he's kind of awkward and he's not very social and he doesn't really know how to connect to other people and he's
there's some girl throwing herself at him and he's just kind of
doesn't know what to do.
Not ignoring her, but just sort of looking awkward and
and he kind of ruins the moment, doesn't he, as well? Like, that's sort of the point of that whole moment is that, the countdown to New Year's Eve, everyone kisses, and it's quite elongated, that kiss with everyone, but he gives her a handshake, and she's bitterly disappointed, which the rest of us could understand. She was given as many cues.
I can put myself in his shoes, though.
I can too, yeah.
Sit there going, I don't want to overstep any bounds here, and I'm not sure how this all works.
To me, it felt the awkwardness probably from he's 21 in this, and he does say he's 21 pretty much. He goes, it's, just been my 21st birthday, I think is how it maybe opens. But to me, it was very relatable to probably how I was in high school. You had a few of those moments with girls and parties and things that you were just I was not aware of really what was going on and doing what he does in this, where people were giving you attention and you're just like, yeah, sure, we're friends, handshakes, and, not really realizing that someone was actually genuinely showing interest and someone else has to come up to you and go, you do know that they like you, and you go, what? Huh? Oh.
Oh, what do you mean, like?
What do you mean, like? Yeah, they've given you love notes in class. Oh, I thought they were passing me notes about the class.
Yeah.
They did come to that awful birthday party you threw. I thought everyone came to that, not realising the cues, and that's kind of what he is. He's very awkward and not in touch in this opening scene.
Well, the thing that gets me now, of course, as a grown-up, is I realise that in those cases, it's also the case that the other person doesn't really know. Like, they sort of go, I think this must be expressing an interest or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't, Tim just kind of doesn't respond appropriately. It'd be easy just to think, she's somehow knowledgeable and knows how relationships are supposed to work. But she's only like 20 or 21 as well. And, exactly only slightly more socially aware than he is.
Yeah.
So you can imagine then, now I'm looking at that, she's not just disappointed that he's not reciprocating, but she would also be thinking, I've done something wrong. I thought, if I sort of hung out and smiled and at the countdown, I sort of moved in close and looked up at him, that's the way you do it, right? And then as soon as that, no, that's not it. Okay, that's really so it's actually a double awkward moment there, I think, as opposed to when I was younger, I just assumed everyone else just knew how everything worked. And it was just me who just
And a lot of these connotations we learn from films and TV, and it's not they can be inappropriate and not relevant. And,
it depends on which films you watch.
That's what I meant by it felt a little bit maybe younger than 21, but I think that added to he's 21, but he's really socially awkward.
Yes, he's especially so.
Yeah, so he's very nerdy. He's not the confident type, because you see that the boyfriend of Kit Kat, he's more the opposite, isn't he? He's like the James Dean. He walks in, he's very suave, he's styled, he's on the prowl, some might say.
Yeah, he's got an amazing shock of hair.
But he seems to kind of, it's not that awkwardness. He would have kissed that girl, just because that's what it would have happened.
Yes.
So there's that. To me, it's that characterization. So this setup, he's awkward, he's shy, he's uncomfortable, and basically to me, and I want to get your thoughts on this as well. So that's the setup. To me, it is still the setup when Tim learns from his father that the men in the family have the ability to travel back in time. So to me, that's not the inciting incident until they sort of talk about that and they explain some of those rules, and it's when he decides he will use it to improve his love life.
Yes.
So to me, that's the inciting incident.
The inciting incident.
That then, let me just finish my justification, that then also makes that opening scene so pivotal, is that he had a woman or a girl kind of throwing herself at him and he didn't really know what to do. So, for him, it shouldn't be about money or, fame or, killing Hitler. For him, it is about solving his love life.
Yes.
And so it makes that opening scene even more powerful.
No, I agree. And if I keep going with my idea of an inciting incident as being when the audience goes, aha, that's what this film is going to be about. It's not about, oh, you can time travel. Ooh, what's that? What experiment should I do? That's definitely the lead up to it, where it's almost
that's the what
the
is
start of the sneeze.
Yeah.
The actual ka-choo moment is when it says, "And what are you going to do?" And he's like, "Oh, love. I
it's
want
about love. Yeah,
I want to, I want a girlfriend."
yeah.
And now suddenly go, that's what this film's going to be about. And it's funny you say that awkward moment with the girl at the party, because immediately you sort of think, oh, well, he's going to go back to that party, because there are a couple of moments there where any time travel film where someone's walking through and then someone fumbles through and goes, oh, excuse me, and smashes something.
Glasses of wine.
It's like, that's one of those moments. You got to remember that, because later on they're going to
show us again.
They're going to show that again, and that's how we know or they're going to avoid it or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like all of those characters in Groundhog Day that he meets along the way. They're all really larger than life and crazy, so that you definitely remember them as you go through it again.
Yeah.
But
that's
of course,
what he does, right?
and of course, though, he, Tim goes, love, and he doesn't even think of that party.
No.
That's how bad he is at this.
Yes.
Because had he even thought about it, he didn't even realize that this girl was into him. I would have thought the obvious thing would be to go, oh, well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk to her and I'm going to kiss her. Yeah, but no, he doesn't do that at all. Not at all. No.
So and what's great about this to me then is the debate is that then straight away he's throwing Kit Kat the next summer. He's throwing Kit Kat and Charlotte, who's played by Robbie Margot, of course. So this beautiful young woman rocks up, and to me this is the debate then, because it's like, okay, I can time travel, I can kind of fix things, I can make things better, and can I make it work for love?
Yes.
Right? So here's the perfect experiment. It's a great little, it's a mini debate on can he use time travel to actually win over this woman, like this young girl.
And this is an interesting one of these points where you do get a bit subverted, because it could have been quite almost creepy.
Yeah, of course.
I was watching I brought Groundhog Day. I watched it not too long ago, and that's kind of a bit creepy. Like part of the way through there, Bill Murray's character he gets
a bit dark.
He's a bit creepy in that he's sort of just fixated on trying to sleep with
Annie McDowell.
Annie McDowell's character, to the point where he's even he's going no right, and then he does it the whole really awkward kids, I love kids, and he's sort of going, oh my god, this is awful.
Yeah.
That opportunity presented itself here with him going back, learning, her hobbies and interests and trying to pay, but it doesn't. Instead, he discovers the futility of trying to win someone who's not really all that interested in you.
Yeah, and that's what's great about this. So the debate to me is like he has the superpower.
Yes.
Right, and he's then given the bait, which is this beautiful young woman. And he also, as a film, they're sunbaking, and she goes, "Can you put sunscreen on me?" And he comes over and he squirts and just sprays it all over her.
Oh yes.
So it's the perfect example, right? Like, run off and go into the closet and come back. And then I love it because this also sets a good comedic tone. Is like she goes, "Can you put some sunscreen on my back?" And he goes, just wait a moment.
Yes,
he's like so much more suave, and then he comes over and he warms up his hands like to give her a massage. She's like, oh, nice. And what you're then leading to is great, because then they fast, he's smitten by her. He's all into her. And you're right, but he doesn't go the creepy thing. He doesn't creep around the house and just jump in the cupboard every time he says the wrong thing to set it all up perfectly. And, the next thing you know, it's the last night where she's going to leave, and he goes to her and he does spill the beans and say, I really do love you, and, maybe we can make something out of this. And she says, oh, if only you'd done it early. Like, only if it wasn't the last night. It kind of makes me feel like an afterthought. And he's like, so it's the last night thing. And so it's like, debate. It's still in the debate here. Yeah. It's like, so now he can use the power to go back to the start of the holiday and try it again. And he does. And it's just greatly shown in this film. There's no other scene in between. He just jumps and he comes in on her and she's fresh there. And he again says, oh, look, we know what's going to happen. We're going to fall in love. Why don't we just start tonight? And she goes, why don't you wait till the last night?
Yeah.
And so there's a real great magical bit there, isn't it? Because he's been given the superpower. He's got to play it out. He's tried both versions. She's not interested.
And this is one of the lessons he learns. Because he learns a couple of lessons about life.
Yeah.
Is that you can't make someone love you.
No, you can't.
Like, it doesn't matter how much you know their favourite flavour of ice cream or you are so suave and cool. And this is quite reassuring for myself as a young man, being tremendously awkward, where you think, if only I hadn't run over and, emptied the whole bottle of sunscreen on her back like an idiot and blurted out stupid things. She would still love me. I would be in there, and you go, well, no, not necessarily.
And I think that's what we're saying before about the romantic comedy thing, right? Like, in the romantic comedy, the power there in a romantic comedy would be to he comes back and he puts it on perfectly. Oh, now she loves him. Yeah. No, she still doesn't love him. Yeah. And I think that's what this film does well. It's like, oh no, it's not just that love story like that. They are going to have to actually fall in love.
Yeah, there's going to be some effort.
Yeah.
And that is, of course, where he goes off to London.
Yep.
And he sort of hasn't really tried again to make use of his power for love forming.
Yeah, and in fact, his life takes love away from him. He moves in with this sort of so-called friend of his father who doesn't like his father.
Oh, he doesn't like
anything, and he's a playwright, and he's trying to, write a play. I love that line where he's like, when you came to the front door, I was having the best idea in 10 years, you little shit. It's such a great line in the film. And so he's not happy, but because he's a lawyer or, a young lawyer, so he's doing all the dirty work for the older lawyers. And, he's with this man and there's no women in sight really. So the break into two, to head to the break into two is that then he goes out with his friend Jay and they go to this blind date restaurant that you're literally blind.
Well, I remember in Melbourne, this was a popular...
Was it?
Trend at one point.
Cool.
Was that there's basically pitch black. Yeah, some of them you just wore a blindfold, and then the waiters did their thing. Some of them were like that. They turned the lights off, and the waiters wore night vision goggles. That was the gimmick. Is it that? Yeah. But I never got to go, and I always thought it would be kind of fun to sort of go along there and be blind. Like, first of all, that kind of adds a bit of interest to the date itself. Gives you both something to talk about.
Definitely.
And again, that idea is supposed to be that love is blind. That if you actually have a real connection with a person, you're not being distracted by their looks. So I thought it was pretty interesting. And he goes in there with Rory, who's kind of the typical sidekick that you have in a romantic comedy.
Isn't that Jay? Who was Jay?
No. Oh, sorry. He goes with Jay. Rory's the other.
Rory's
goose
the lawyer guy. Yeah.
No. Jay's the other sidekick who's a little bit over the top and a bit too
super energetic and
is
obvious,
inappropriate. Yeah, and
so they go to this restaurant and they match up with Mary and her friend, and they have good banter, and I think that's the opposite with Charlotte, the Margot Robbie character, is that he has this weird banter.
Yeah, and I think I think that they had to do it at night because in the dark, because it had to really emphasize the fact that they. Whereas Charlotte, Margot's character, she's just gorgeous. It's Margot Robbie, and she's being portrayed as gorgeous.
Yeah, that's it.
And this is the opposite. This is like, okay, well, you're not being distracted by the fact that she's pretty or not. Yeah. You just got to talk to this person.
And I think that gives him a bit more confidence as well. But I liked it as well because film is about light on screen. You can't take a photo without light. You need light. It's a basic thing with film. And so it's an interesting decision here to do a scene works for narrative, like to be blind. Doesn't work that well on film, but I thought it was a really interesting take on it, right? Like it was something that hasn't been done before.
It worked. I'm surprised that it did work as well as it did. Because I was watching it this most recent time where I was really having a bit of a spacebrainsy eye on it, thinking I remember the previous times I've watched this, it's not bothered me, this scene. But so I was going, what is it?
And there is a risk to it.
You do see some reflections. You do hear movements. You do sort of see a couple little glints of things, but you don't really see anything. And it's all just a lot of talking back and forward. And it cuts quickly. So you don't end up with a silent... Because if you could see them, you'd end up with one of those quiet moments where one of them fidgets with something and sort of looks nervous.
That's right.
You know, in this one, none of that. It's all cut out. It's only their dialogue, and they're having a great time.
They are. So to me, this breaks into two. Like, he's found a girl
who actually seems to like him.
Who seems to like him.
So that's, there we go. Doesn't have to try and force it.
So to me, this breaks into two. But then she gives him, when she gives him her phone number. Yes. So to me, that's like, oh, okay. So now's the fun and games. He's found someone that they've got a quality in their relationship. And I guess that's also the darkness, is there's a quality in it. Because she is stunning, Rachel McAdams, anyway. Probably way outside his league. But
kind of lucky, really, isn't it?
Yeah, lucky that was in the darkness. But it's definitely that then she gives him her number. So therefore, he's found someone. He likes her. She likes him. Okay, so how's this now going to play out?
How's it going to go?
Fun and games, right?
With the time travel element.
So now that he's got this time travel and he's got the woman, okay, how's it going to work? And this is really great because he gets back to the apartment and the playwright has...
Harry, is it?
Yeah. Is it Harry? Yeah, it is Harry.
Yeah.
He's devastated, and he explains that the opening night of this play, the actor had... the blank...
His star actor forgot his lines.
And so this is what everyone's going to remember. It doesn't matter how good the play was, the star, and he's like, I could use my time travel.
Yes.
And so, great, like you knacked on it. So he does, and it's a really great scene. He goes into one of the actors. It's also a really good
save the cat things where he has this time travel power, and he's using it to help this guy who is just clearly he's a dick.
Yeah, he's a dick to him most of the time.
But he can sort of see that he's a frustrated guy that just wants a bit of... fun, a bit of action, a bit of play.
So he does. He goes and he explains it to one actor. He tell him I'll just learn your lines. And this actor, great old actor,
is Dudley? Dudley's dad in the Harry Potter. There's a couple of Harry Potter connections here.
There is, and he's a great actor. That guy. He tells him to fuck off, and but then looks at the script and okay.
He does go. He goes, I better just
think. Yeah, maybe I didn't know that line. And you have this great moment on stage where he does pause. But then he delivers his line. He's like, great, this will be good now.
And he sits back looking pleased with himself.
And then the other actor, the defense lawyer, goes to talk and just can't.
Yeah.
And it's devastating. And so he's like, so he runs out into a cupboard and comes back obviously in time with the placards that, this is the script. He tells him the script. And so he gets away with it. And when he then, so the play is a success. When he returns, he realizes that he doesn't have Mary's phone number anymore.
No, that's right.
So this really is one of those you can do that for your friend, your roommate, but then you don't get to meet Mary.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's giving us some of the rules.
Yeah.
That, stuff you change, stay changed.
Yes.
And, it's just, he's going, okay, well, if I go back to the restaurant and meet her, then I can't help Harry. And Harry really, really needed this help.
Yeah.
And Harry is arguably an easier person to be around when he's being adored and loved.
That's right.
He's still a bit of a dick, but at least he's not so venomous to everyone. He's just a bit arrogant to everyone.
But it's great fun and games, right? And he explains the rules. So then he remembers that Mary said that she's a big Kate Moss fan. And there's a Kate Moss show, photos of Kate Moss at the museum. So he rushes there and he's going to do a vigil basically to meet her.
He's there all week.
And he's there all week. It's a great montage.
And this is where it gets a little bit, there is a little bit of a creep in here where he runs over and immediately starts blurting out things. Of course, she doesn't know him from a block of clay, which she indicates. And she's got to go, he's kind of funny. And he tries to be charming, but he can't be because he's really not very good at it.
No, he's not good at being charming.
And then he finds out that she's already got a boyfriend. And he's like, well, that was quick. When was this? and then presses her for details, which is all part of this fun and games, isn't it? Because it's like, well, he has this superpower.
Yeah, yeah.
And at first you're going, why is he like going? And then, quickly enough, you're cotton on, oh, okay. He gets the exact address and time, and like need to know. You're like,
yeah.
And sure enough, he goes back.
And it's great, isn't it, that she's got a boyfriend, because it's escalating the stakes. That if you change something, the whole universe goes on, and you miss out.
Yeah, the world continues.
The world continues. So then he does go to the party, and he's really pressed to influence Mary and get to know her and get her out away from this potential boyfriend, so that then they can be together.
Yeah, and thankfully that seems to work.
Yeah, and they are together. They have a nice dinner. They walk all the way back to her place. They're really getting along. She invites him in, and so and suggests they're gonna have sex, and so it doesn't. And obviously, he underperforms. For the first time, it's too much pressure.
It's a bit awkward. It's a bit bit too much. And she's like, "Oh yeah, that was nice."
Yeah, and so he's like, "Oh, hang on, I can go back in time." So he goes back in time, and he, there's a couple of jokes in there about her bra. Like the second time, he can undo it really fast, and he avoids her shoes tripping over them. So it's a lot more smoother, and he takes control, and she has a great time. They have a great sex, I suppose. And then he's like, "Just give me another minute," and so then he repeats it all again.
And they end up, because initially it's just they're exhausted on bed, and then there's over there the doona covers and the sheets are everywhere, and they're all just somewhere else in the room. Yeah, they clearly had a great time.
Yeah,
and she says, "Well, that's the best thing ever." And, and he's like, "Oh, yeah."
And then she's like, "Well, is that all it is for the first time?"
is it just one? And then she says, "Oh, so what? We're just gonna do it once."
Yeah.
And we've seen he's done about 5 or 6 times. He's gone back, so he's like, So a little bit of comedy there, which is nice.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then we get this great montage scene, which I thought was really cool, in the tube station, and it's basically their relationship blossoms, and so they're they're going through as they go through they keep going through this tube where they're entering and exiting the station, and their relationship is developing. They go to fancy dress party. They go to work. They also run off the platforms.
Yeah, they go in. They go separately. Yeah. And then at some point they're both getting onto the same train. So they've moved in at some point.
They've moved in. I think he's got a box of his books. I think that's what it is. And then they're going off somewhere else, and there's a party, and they're out with their friends. And so it's a great speed up of the story.
Which is sometimes missed in these rom-coms where they go from naught to getting engaged in like a week.
That's right.
And it's kind of a bit much.
So he then has a night out. She doesn't want to go. He's going to the theatre, and he happens to see Charlotte at this theatre production.
Yes.
And he's with Rory, the colleague from work. And he sees Charlotte, and so he's like, "Oh, I can use this time, I'm going to go up to her." And he goes up to her, and he just makes a buffoon of himself, insulting gay people and his friend. It's very terrible. So he goes away, and of course time travels and comes back, and then he tries a second time, and the second time his awkwardness.
I love his hand actually. He's "Oh, you're gay," and he wobbles his hand, and she says, "Yes, I'm gay."
Wobbling her hands,
and you can see him just die inside because did I just do that? I did. Oh my god.
So and he tries it a second time, and then I think he tries it a third time, and what's great is then that fourth time he's like, "Oh, there's my ex," and there's a girl I wanted to hook up with or something, and Rory's like, "We should go," and say, "It's not worth it."
No.
So it's a great little joke. But anyway, outside she actually spots him and comes up to him and talks to him, and then dumps her friend and says, "Let's go out to dinner." And they go out to dinner and seem to be getting along really well. And they talk about that summer. And she says, "Oh, we really wasted our time, didn't we? We could have got it, basically got it on." And he's thinking, well, no, that never would have worked.
This whole scene is such a... Because this is a real lead-up rom-com scene, isn't it? This is where it's leading up to the, like, all
temptation.
All is lost, or a midpoint, or some sort of devastation here, which is... when I was watching this the first time, I remember going, "Oh my god, no, you're such a nice guy." Yeah. But he set it up so well where, Mary's in the dumps a bit, like and I've experienced this as well, and you sort of like she's just like, but in a rom-com situation, in real life, just sometimes your partner is just like, no, I'm just staying in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I'm just going to play computer games, just, whatever.
Yeah.
But in a rom-com situation, that any scene sort of depicts how their relationship is going at any given time.
Yeah.
So if they have a scene like that where she's like, yeah, no, I'm not
getting out of bed.
I'm not getting out of bed. I'm doing it.
Going
And he says, no, can't it be fun? No, I'm not doing it. And he goes, oh, okay, I'll go on my own. It's kind of telling you that's their whole relationship is like that right now. Like they've had weeks or months of this problem.
Yes.
Which is, I think it's the Eternal Sunshine of Spotless Minds that has a scene like that.
Yeah, it does.
Where, we're going to go out. No, I don't feel like going out. And and there's kind of that same sort of energy, and he walks off because that's how their relationship has become.
Yeah, and in another rom-com, it could be the married man and woman, and the wife is like, oh, I'm tired because of the kids. You just go out, and then of course he goes out, and the secretary throws herself at him, and you're like, oh, it's the disaster moment. You know?
I know, because I was watching this the first time. I was going to say, this is one of my favourite scenes is this part here where is this whole build-up of a getting caught cheating moment.
Yeah.
Because we've even had, he went out with Rory.
Yeah.
So you're just waiting for him to come across Rory again, who spots them together going into the hotel or, kissing at the door.
Yeah.
Because you probably wouldn't actually have them sleep because it's not that sort of serious a rom-com. But there'd be that sort of kiss and Rory would see it and then he would try to keep it quiet, but it would blurt out because he's kind of a bit of a goofball.
Yeah.
And then that would be the whole bag eyes closing. That would be all of that situation. But in this one here, just right at that moment where she says, well, how about you come on in?
Yeah, it's nicer, warmer inside.
And you're waiting for that. You're cringing. You're going, oh, God, don't be a dick. Don't. He goes, actually, no.
Yeah.
And he runs back. And that's when he proposes to, which is funny as well because she's still not in a really
good
upbeat mood.
No.
She's like... Oh, what's that? The music? You got the radio? Oh, I just got the radio one, of course. She says yes. And he goes on down there and there's like the band playing and he's like, move along. Thank you.
Yeah. And they have this wedding that, there's a bit of hijinks leading up to it, but they have this wedding where it's kind of a bit of a disaster on the outside looking in, isn't it? It's a bit of a montage of a wedding that... There's bucketing rain and everyone gets wet. Everyone's pissed off. He also then has a best man time travel scenario. So one gets up to start talking. I think it's Rory, and then it's just boring. And then
he starts talking about some legal technicality.
And everyone's like, and then he gets to, then he obviously went back in time and got Jay, and Jay does this whole thing about all the women he slept with, and so it's just disgusting. And then he does his dad, I think, and his dad is perfect kind of thing. So there's that, and then I like this because at the end of it,
go on.
I was just going to say I like this because. This is where it's a bit thematic because he kind of gets to the end of that day and he goes to Mary, would you do this day again? And I'm thinking, it's like he's got the ability to go back. Should this be
done differently?
Yeah.
Did it annoy you that it rained and so on?
And she's like, no, it was perfect. And so there's a bit of, to me, he's always wanting things to be perfect. He's always changing it. But there's Mary, the person without time travel ability. She's like, no, this was good. This was a nice day.
Well, I also like that his dad wanted to, in his delivery of his speech, there's something that was wanted to say, I
should have told you I love you, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, you're sort of thinking, how many times has he done this speech?
Yeah, that's right.
Because you don't know,
we don't know.
He sort of delivered a speech and you're like, nah, that wasn't quite right. He finally gets to the one that he goes, look, Desmond, top bloke, I love you.
Yeah.
And, Tim, my son, I love you, of course.
Yeah.
And you can see he's satisfied with it and go, okay, I'll take that one.
And that's a nice, again, unlike the romantic comedy, right? Like the dad is coming in and controlling the story for a moment, which again is the family thing.
Yeah, we had a couple of the funny, awkward speeches because you always got to have the bad speech at the wedding as the part of the rom-com, But he can save that, so it's good.
Yeah. Anyway, so they do have their daughter, Posey, pretty quickly. So they have the baby. And this is then... So things are kind of up. This is an up midpoint, this
Yes.
film. And then what happens to turn the story on a dime and really head us into the midpoint is Kit Kat's relationship and her not fitting in, which was implied in the wedding. She does say to Uncle Desmond, boys don't treat me very well. And it's actually, you can see that boyfriend of hers is like hitting on a waitress, you know.
And they've been on again, off again.
Yeah, they'd been on
the
again.
whole
And
time.
we'd also been shown that she hadn't survived in London, like she'd lost a couple of jobs and moved back to her parents. And so we'd already seen a bit of that, but we don't need to go into all those details. But basically this midpoint is, you know, when things are doing well, it's Posey's first birthday is Kit Kat doesn't show up and she's had a drunken crash, car crash, and she's really beaten up. And so what they realise is that, you know, some of these little things that were going on and she was wild and free is that, no, actually it's more serious than that.
It's
She
not her
needs a
being
bit
wild
more
and
help.
free, that's her being a little bit out of control.
Yeah. So Tim does decide to intervene.
I love this part here as well, just from the lesson, because we get it's a bit of a, again, this whole midpoint is turning things on its head again, because you would have expected, as I said, maybe the wedding would be a disaster and
then Tim
she'd
has
be
to
unhappy
fix it,
and it'd be trouble. But no, that actually worked out quite nicely.
No,
and then
they're okay.
it actually turns out it's Kit Kat's relationship that's having the problem.
That is the problem, yeah.
And he goes along and he says, look, it's because you met this, I can't remember the name of her. Jimmy. Yeah, it's because you met Jimmy.
Yeah,
and so
your life went sour after that.
He tells her, he goes, well, I'm going to fix your life.
Yeah.
Which, is like one of these, okay. Mm. And he takes her back through the cupboard. Yeah. Back to that first
party.
The first New Year's party. And they wander through, and again, they dodge the spilled drinks. They don't spill the drinks. And this time he says, I'll just stay here, wait for a moment. And then Jimmy walks in, goes straight, because they didn't intercept.
Yeah.
He walks straight past up to some other girl. Yeah. And she's like, Jimmy was never interested in me. No. And then, they go back forward in time, and it's like they get an upload of everything.
It is,
They catch up.
An update.
On everything that happened. And they realise, Jay, what a surprise. I end up not getting with Jimmy. I got with Jay, and they're happy.
Yeah.
And they're sitting out having their picnic on the lawn now, and Jay's there, and Kit Kat's there, and they're a happy couple.
It is.
And you just go, that seems all nice. And then he goes home, and
this is my favourite scene.
To his, daughter.
Yeah.
And there's a dark-haired boy.
Yeah.
And it's geez, the horror of that.
I know.
You're just, what the heck?
I remember when I first saw this film, I thought that was horrific, but I'm sure that then maybe the second time I watched it was after then I'd had a child.
Yeah.
And that this scene hit me a lot harder that second time, because you thought, wow, imagine, like, it's one thing when a baby's born, you don't really know, and then you build a bond. But imagine him having that bond with Posey for X amount of time.
Yeah.
And that child is gone.
Yeah,
it's the death of a child, right?
You don't have that little 2-year-old or 1.5-year-old or whatever it is. And
it's just some other baby that you wouldn't have had that connection
and everyone's telling you this is your child.
This is your child. You'd be like,
really?
Wow, yeah. So being that it's a romantic comedy, it's a shock scene. It doesn't have to go into any sort of like expletives about it, but it's very raw in that way. And so he rushes to his father, and his father explains, whoops, I meant to tell you, you can't, if you go further back than when a child is born, you do change. You change it all, because it's like the moment of conception is too impossible.
Yeah, so all the way up until, it's fine before they come out.
Yeah.
Because you don't know them.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't know what combination you got anyway.
No. So
but once you've got your child, you risk losing it all by going back and doing anything that changes things.
So it's kind of like a bookmark on the error, meaning you cannot return to earlier
and that's an interesting. And I think there's a bit of bad guys closing, and the world's getting smaller because suddenly his superpower has just been chopped. It's like he can't go back and fix anything or change anything before Posey was born,
and that means he can't fix Kit Kat.
Yes.
She has to fix it herself.
And I love that, because he goes back, he goes back before he took Kit Kat, and he doesn't take Kit Kat.
Yeah, that's right.
And so he allows then, that means he still has his daughter. But then he's just like, Mary's there, and she says, we've got to do something. And Mary says, yes, we've got to let her make the decision. and this is like one of those real learning things, is that it's sort of a mirror of the Charlotte bit.
It is, isn't it?
You can't change someone.
No.
You can change yourself all you like, but you can't actually make someone else change.
Just spitting bombs tonight.
And so he sits there, and they just sit there and don't leave her side until she finally goes,
all right.
Yeah, because like it's basically they're sort of convincing her, we actually do care.
Yep.
This isn't, previous
you don't
times
need
we
Jimmy.
didn't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's when she goes, okay, well, I can't really continue this relationship with Jimmy, can I?
Yeah. And she does, and funny enough, then he says, well, how about Jay?
Yeah. How about you come around,
have dinner with Jay.
You could meet Jay.
Yep.
And she said, Jay?
Yeah.
But yeah, sure enough, of course, because he sort of has this insight that, in fact, if they do get together, they're going to be good.
Yeah. And they then have another baby, kind of implying that, well, then they can't change the back future anyway.
Yeah, you can't go back to Kit Kat accident and do anything about it.
No, that's right. To me, then, the all is lost, someone dying or something dying, is that then the next scene they learn that the father has terminal cancer or whatever, and you can't go back to change it at all. So, going to see him, he says, well, it was probably my smoking that did it, but then I wouldn't have met your mother if I wasn't a smoker. And he's like, I can't go back in time because if I did, then you guys wouldn't be born.
Yeah. Like he says, why do you think, how do you think a teacher retiring at 50 to spend all of his time with his kids? And this is that point where you go, that's why he's such a nice guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he's been doing this.
Yeah, this is what
he's been getting the parenting and the experiences and ensuring that, this is his time is not wasted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can sort of, initially it's sort of a sad thing. You think, oh, he's going to, die and it's not going to happen. But on the other hand, he's had a good period of time, however long it is, of like really intense good times with his dad. And it is nice there that they do go and have his funeral.
Yeah, well, but before that, he tells him to. So he does the funeral, but he tells him that. So his advice, the big cracker, is that he should live every day twice over.
Yes,
and so he does die, but Tim can go back in time. See him before his death.
Yeah, that's
which is a bit odd as well.
It's funny because he walks in and he's reading. What was his favourite book? He's reading the
Charles Dickens.
Moby and Dick. He says, "Oh, you're looking very serious."
Oh, where did you come from?
Yeah, and then it's like that few moment. Oh, I guess you know now. Then, don't you? Yes. Yeah. And it's so cool that they can
have that conversation.
Go back and have these conversations.
So. And that's what he does. That, to me, this is breaking into three, is that then he follows that dad's advice to live each day. And we see that twice. Yeah. So he goes, okay, I'll give this a trial. So it's like, to me, this is breaking into the Act 3 because now it's a plan of attack. So his plan is to follow that advice and see, okay, from this sadness of losing dad, is it best to live every day twice? And we see him. So we see him being a lawyer and the head lawyer's being nasty to Rory. We see them running late. We see him getting a lunch and the girl's really nice to him, but he doesn't react. We see him coming home to his wife, winning a court case. And then he repeats the day, but the second day he appreciates everything and he mocks the boss. He appreciates the woman that serves him the lunch and has a little chat with her.
He wins the case easily rather than kind of
like the stress and the tension of the day. And he comes home to his wife and he's happy. And so like that plan is
well, that's the
working.
thing is she then says, oh, how was the day? Because before doing that, how was your day? Oh, it was a bit much really. And this time she says, how was your day? He goes, oh, it was really nice. Yeah, so he's sort of figuring this out. He's realising that, this sort of works.
But the villain, which is not really a villain, Mary then says, why don't we have another child? And, of course, that means that he will not be able to see his father anymore.
Yeah, that time period is locked off from him.
So it's not a villain in the true sense, but it is in the story, and his superpower gets cut off.
It's that reversal. If we're in Act 3, this is a reversal where you think he's found the secret of happiness and love and life, because at any time he can go back and visit his dad, because his dad will go, oh, you must have come back from after I was dead. Okay, that's really nice,
Yeah.
And then, he gets that point where it's like reversal. Bang, you can't. Once we're going to have kids, and he's like, let me think about it. He goes back and his dad knows something's changed. You know, how come you've come back to play ping pong?
Yeah.
He says, well, I'm about to have you're dead and I'm about to have a child.
Yep.
I don't think he says it in that words, but they know that's what's going on.
Along those lines.
Okay, so that means from the dad point of view, nothing really changes.
Yeah.
But he realizes that, okay, he can't revisit me.
And so he says, what's the last thing? And to me, this is a great climax of the film, because then he says, well, we can do one last thing, which is what we were doing as father-son all those years ago, run along the beach together.
Yeah.
And he's like, as long as we don't really touch anything and we don't go around anyone else, we shouldn't affect the world too much. And so they go back, and there's a really lovely scene here where, you know, they run along and they throw stones into the water, which they've always done, but you see it, and Tim's a little boy and the father's a lot younger. And that's the climax, and he comes back and Mary gives birth to a baby girl, and he knows he can never see his father again. So it's a bit of a, like, happy, sad climax in a way, isn't it? Yeah. So he's won, but, you know, not. And then he reveals to us, well, the thing is you don't have to follow that plan that his father gave him, which is live every day twice. You can just live every day once, but deciding from that point to not time travel and just to appreciate everything the first time.
Do it like the second time through, but do it the first time through, yes.
Which is what you were saying at the beginning of this whole episode, is us, like, we have the ability. This is what this movie is kind of saying. You actually have the power of time travel, the message of time travel.
Yes.
If you just live and appreciate every moment that you do actually have. Yeah.
So
it's very sweet.
You don't really need the time travel to make yourself happy.
No.
Right. So it's good, and that's
just
why
make yourself happy.
You end with this feeling of like
you do.
Yeah, they kept having these tense moments, but they're really only tense moments because you knew how a romantic comedy or a time travel movie is supposed to play out.
That's right.
And he never cheats on Mary.
No.
They never have a breakup.
They never have a breakup, no.
Kit Kat is not physically abused. You know, it's an abusive relationship, but she has a car crash, but then she does make the decision to change.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's all of these sort of things we're expecting the bad thing to happen, but in fact, it doesn't happen the way you'd expect it to. And so you still get that feeling of, without having to have the bad thing happen.
Agreed. So that brings us to the end of the plot anyway. So let us know what you thought. Did we miss any of the really key parts? What was your, favourite scene? Let us know online, whatever. Send us an email, hit up with a comment in the socials. So let's move on to a bit of ladder. This was a classic, so we kind of mix it in with the classic. So there's a lot less films. For me, on the ladder, I've decided to kind of mix it in with some of the other classics that have something to do with time. And I really thought about this as in, okay, so if you watched Back to the Future, which was a previous classic of us, which is really a comedy sci-fi.
Yes.
Because it's funny and it's great and it's awesome. If you haven't seen Back to the Future, please go see it. And then you watch this and, okay, it's funny, but it's romantic sci-fi.
Yes.
So it's kind of a good mix. And then I thought, well, then you can, but it's still on the time stuff.
So the next one's going to be something nice and warm and pleasant.
No, then you go really horrific. And it's still got the time factor in it. Not quite the time travel factor, but it's got the weird portal time difference that happens to Sam Neill, and go Event Horizon.
Event Horizon. Funny thing is,
they're the three, not necessarily in the one night, but I think over the course of a weekend, if you watch those three over the course of a weekend, I think that would be a real palette builder all around, kind of weird time differences.
It's interesting because it's almost what I was going to pick as well, because I was looking there going, Event Horizon. And I thought, I don't know if I want to spoil about the time feeling quite so. So I had the Back to the Future, of course, and About Time. But instead of Event Horizon, I had The Matrix.
Yeah, okay.
Because The Matrix is also about, what if I had this superpower? What if I was the chosen one? What if I could learn Kung Fu? What if my dreary day-to-day life was not my fate?
Yep.
Which is kind of what About Time is as well. It's like, what if I wasn't fated to have to live through each day just as it is?
Yeah, you have this special power.
And you learn, that it needn't be that way. And so I thought The Matrix is quite good because it gives you that sort of feeling of power and strength, but it has that darker edge to it as well, which is, and it lives up to more of the usual science fiction sort of tropes. Yeah. I think it was good. I mean, that would be, you can imagine these things. We'll have to organise some
watch parties,
at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. So have you got your own ladder going? Where do your numbers sit, and where do your films? What films would you recommend watching with About Time? So, what about some science? Sorry, this the genetics of time travel, the love factor in time travel.
It's
being the chosen one.
It's well known, in fact, that time travel follows genetic lines.
Especially men. Men have it. It's a power only for men.
I mean, it's something we don't tell women about because,
maybe it's a genetic anomaly that shouldn't be there, but
it'll spoil things for them if they found out.
Maybe it's always about men that, we just want to finish things and get things done and, we're hunters quickly.
Quickly. That's what my wife always says. You'll have to get things done quickly.
Very quickly.
A little bit too quickly sometimes.
Too quickly, yeah.
Okay, well, so here is an interesting thing. So let's just sort of say this thing I'm going to talk about involves the self-regulation of attention so that it remains focused on the present moment.
Okay.
Along with this self-regulation, it also requires a focus on the immediate experience with an attitude of curiosity, openness, and acceptance.
Uh-huh.
What does that sound like? That sounds a lot like About Time and his secret.
Yeah.
So his secret that he found that you don't need time travel for is called mindfulness. It's an interesting thing. So it comes a bit from various philosophical traditions, including quite commonly the Eastern, Buddhist,
the Buddhist teaching
type of teachings, where it's talking about you want to pay attention to yourself, to your surroundings, the current moment. There is only now. There is no future. There is no past. Yeah. The past has happened. Thinking about it, dwelling on it, doing anything will not change the past. And this is the case in About Time once you have the child.
Yeah.
Okay, once you've had that, you're kind of locked here. Your past is your past. You can't go back and change it. And this is what he learned.
It doesn't really matter.
And
child is too powerful.
As it turns out, what does it matter?
Yep.
The other side of this is using it more recently, some research on can we make ourselves happy? Like you've probably heard this thing that happiness is a choice.
Yep.
And a lot of people go, you can choose to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of it is, of course, it's far more complicated than that. But I would say it's certainly a series of micro choices and attitudes which will lead in a more happiness-oriented direction, which is certainly true. You could, for example, dwell on the fact that your dad has died and that you're not going to be able to go back and see him, and that is crap.
Yep.
Or you could remember that the reason you want to go see him is because he was a great guy and he taught you a lot of stuff, and the reason you are the person you are today is because you learnt from them.
Yep.
And you can just enjoy the moments you have now with the people you have around you rather than worrying about all the things you could have done or could have been or should have been.
Yeah, and in that context, you could think about the good memories from your father versus the feeling of death. The fact that he is dead and gone, you could just focus on the happy memories that you had with him.
The running on the beach, the skipping of the stones, metaphorically speaking. Yeah. So anyway, so there was some research by Lindsay, E.K. Chin, B. Greco, C.M. Young, a whole bunch of people actually in this in 2018. It's called How Mindfulness Training Promotes Positive Emotions, Dismantling Acceptance Skills Training in 2 randomized controlled trials. It was published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. Yeah, so this is not unresearched. It's not just supposed. They've actually wanted to try it. Yeah. Can you actually have a measurable effect?
Yeah.
So the researchers, they compared the effects of 2 different mindfulness training programs. So they did this thing called monitoring. So monitoring is where you simply pay attention to your physical state, your feelings, what's say around you immediately. Like maybe you're holding an apple and you're looking at the apple and you're thinking, how do I feel? How's the apple feel on my hand? That's what you're paying attention to.
Yep.
If an external, distraction comes along your way, you acknowledge it, but then you move your focus back and so that you keep that. That's called monitoring. Versus monitoring plus acceptance. Now, acceptance is you're doing this monitoring, and you'll have thoughts about bad things that have happened. You'll feel bad emotions at various times because it's a practice. And the idea is that you're to accept that you do feel this thing and look at how it affects your body, how it makes you feel, and then realize that it's allowed to exist. It's something that is real, but you can move on, and now you can focus back on an apple, or you can focus on your breathing in just the same way.
Yeah.
So you're not trying to deny anything. You just accept that it is all just part of the here and now.
Yep.
Okay, so then they compared this then with a control condition, which is no treatment or inactive treatment. So they did in a couple of different studies of stressed adults. So one study used in-person mindfulness training, while the other study taught these skills via smartphone. Both positive and negative emotions were assessed at the end of the day via diaries, and also at 4 random times each day using the smartphone for 3 days before and after the study. So what they found was that while all the active mindfulness interventions, so the monitoring only and monitoring plus acceptance, reduced negative feelings equally from before the study, they did differ in their effects on positive feelings. So for improving positive feelings, the monitoring plus acceptance group had a significantly stronger effect compared to monitoring only and the control. So what they're saying here is that if you're practicing mindfulness, it will only make you happier. It'll make you less unhappy in general, but it'll make you happier only if you learn to tolerate, make space for, and accept whatever experiences arise rather than judging them and letting them define us.
Right.
So, and this is an interesting one because I did a mindfulness study and course a bit back in my history because I'd heard it had good benefits. But I also at the time there was some various troubles in my life that I feel were making me unhappy.
Yep.
One of those was watching the news, so I stopped that. But and I certainly found the training that I did, it was the monitoring and acceptance. So it went through stages of, first of all, just breathing, paying attention to your breath, paying attention to your body, imagining, your body inflating, deflating with your breath and that sort of thing. And then it was like, okay, now listening to something like, so lying there and then listen with your eyes closed, listen to something that you can hear, like a car or a bird or the wind or whatever, and just really pay attention to that and how it enters your body. And as you moved along, it got to the point where the training was, okay, now think of something that is really bad. Like either something that has happened or something that might happen or something you've always been afraid of, some situation that you just do not like.
Yeah. And
then you monitor your body on how you respond to it. Your breathing quickens, your stomach clenches a bit. You don't want to think about it. You want to try and think, but it's like the opposite. You got to draw focus on it is what you do in this. And then once you sort of focus and you're feeling how you're feeling from this, you then, I don't know, start listening to the bird.
Yeah, right.
And then you focus on the bird.
Yep. And
then you get this point, the idea is to train to the point where you can go, oh, okay, I can feel bad. It's almost like it's a choice. I'm actually purposefully bringing up bad thoughts and memories. And I'm recognizing how that's making me feel. But then I'm at the same time, I'm going, okay, I'll just put that aside now. And I'm going to focus on something that's happened to me right now. Like a car was driving past. And so you're like, what sort of engine is that? Do I think it's a diesel or is that a petrol engine? Would that be 4 cylinders, 6 cylinders, 8 cylinders? And you kind of feel that. And I can certainly attest, and that's that acceptance, that monitoring and acceptance. And I still practice this most days. Certainly, I like to think I'm happier for it. The research says I should be happier for it. And About Time has this exact same thing where he accepts the loss of his father as a thing that really did happen, but he realizes that that's not the only thing that's happened. Things happen and things don't happen, and the idea is to appreciate everything that comes along, the good and the bad, as things happen, and you can accept that they are there and get something from them.
I think acceptance is a big thing. Just personally, overall, even outside of mindfulness, helps with the perception of happiness in your life anyway, because if you... bad stuff's going to happen. Bad and good stuff. And also just stuff. Neutral stuff.
Neutral stuff.
Like just the neutral stuff. It takes an hour for me to catch the train to work, and it could be a fine train ride. Nothing bad happens. Nothing good happens.
Yeah.
It's just a train ride. But so it just sort of acceptance is a big one, you know. And I think I've found that then also, I think when I was a lot younger, you know, something bad would happen and then you would really dwell on it. You'd talk about it.
Try to
people.
analyze it.
You analyze. You're like, well, how could I do that better? Or that was that company or person after me. And like, I felt that for a long time I analyzed things, and realistically that just made things worse and worse. And I'm not saying don't learn, because definitely learning is a key part. And I know my wife and I are quite good now that something bad might happen and you, with the kids or whatever, and you go through the emotional response of it reasonably quickly. And we've learned that, no, you have to have the emotional response, but then you kind of go, okay, well, what's the lesson from it? And what are we going to do about it? And how would we approach that next time? And just kind of in that process, you're accepting it. You know, you're just accepting it for what it is.
And I think this is one of the lessons in About Time is that if you had the ability to time travel, like I said, you'd go, okay, I'm going to go back, and this time I'm not going to do that thing, or I'm not going to, blow my top and get angry. And so then you're going to end up with this whole time sequence where you're not learning how to deal with anything.
Yeah, well, that's right. Do you just always time travel then to fix things?
Because it's just always, no, I'm going back and fixing it. I'm going back and fixing it. I'm going back and fixing it.
Yeah. Do you actually just go, do you know what? My behaviour wasn't appropriate. I would rather that not happen again. You know, so when I'm dealing with my children, I'm going to try not to blow my top and yell.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you'll probably still do it, but maybe 9 times out of 10 you don't do it.
No, I've developed a secret weapon. It's called the boring lecture.
Oh.
So rather than get angry at my kids, I assume a neutral monotone.
Yep.
And I begin, it doesn't really matter what I say because they're not listening. But the thing is, it's one of those things is okay, so the way you have to deal with this is one of you has to do this and one of you has to do that. You know, this is something you got to learn, blah, 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 blah. And of course, all they hear is blah, 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 blah. And you can see them start to roll their eyes and say, if you don't want to hear me saying this again, just, try to pick yourself up and not do this again. Yeah. And I found that it's far more effective than when I yell at them, because when I yell at them, it just increases stress. This just introduces this level of boredom they want to avoid.
I'll probably have to try doing that myself. Yeah. What I find hard is more, you try to start on the calm level, and then if it just is ongoing, then you're going, ugh, and you just... And quite often it's the old kick in the cat as well. Like other things are going on and it all just escalates. That's what I find. And I see it with my wife and I see it with other people as well, that you can, if you're not the one in the moment, you can really see how it escalates so quickly, and the person's boiling over. So everything you're saying with mindfulness, I mean, one of the best things you can ever do if you're feeling angry or stressed is actually just detach from the moment for a minute, like a bit of mindfulness. So I was, for a while there, I had one of those apps that you just did 5 minutes whenever you could. So you could do it on the train, you could do it in your lunch break, you could do it on the toilet, whatever, right? Like if you had 5 minutes, you could just sit there and with your headphones or your earbuds or whatever, or speaker, and it just stepped you through, basically like saying what you were talking about. Oh, feel your eyeballs, feel your things and stuff. So, and I did Buddhist meditation, was the first meditation I ever did in my life, where it was the whole silent Buddhist. There's no talking, there's no guidance, and that's the whole point, is to kind of notice, oh, my stomach is rumbling, my toes itchy, and that's the whole point of it.
This lotus position is uncomfortable.
Yeah, like, oh God, this chair is so uncomfortable, how much longer? And you start to realise how your mind talks to yourself and the critic and all those kind of things. And and even afterwards, the monk was like, we're not talking about any of this, none of it's important. And you're like, oh. Because you're used to, again, that over-analysing, because that's the whole point. Don't analyse it, just move on, So there's definitely a lot of value in that, and we'd probably have a lot less, angry people out there if everyone just did take a breath and take a beat.
So I find it, going to the gym is a good spot for that. So, you're sitting there doing some squats. If you're not paying attention... you're going to hurt yourself.
There you go.
So you sit there and you're just going to think of, how are my legs moving? How do I feel the weight through my legs?
Yeah.
And you'll get through your count of how many you're doing.
Yep.
And often I sort of go, oh, I'm already up to number 8.
Yes.
My 8th repetition. I go, how many more can I do? Am I going to make it? But it's interesting. And I think a lot of sports people who really, particularly endurance athletes, they have to be mindful because if you're doing a 2-hour marathon and you've got to run, you can't do that distracted. You've got to be thinking, how's my legs moving? How am I breathing?
Yeah.
You're not cursing out what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
And you can't be worrying about the training session you missed. You just got to be thinking about moving your legs now.
What you can control. Yeah. So that's really interesting. So practice some mindfulness. There you go. You learn from the space brains. All right. So that brings us to the end of tonight's episode 95, a classic looking at About Time. So let us know what you thought, your feelings of the film. Did we miss anything? Did we upset you by talking about some scene that you don't like, or there was a scene we skipped over that you did like? Maybe you do know Bill Nighy and you can get him in touch with us because we'd love to give him a hug. Either way, let us know. You can follow, share, listen to podcasts, let a friend know, give us a review. All of those things does help the show. So please do send out some support. Even just letting someone know that Space Brains exists is really helpful. Next episode, we are going to focus in on the sci-fi horror.
Sci-fi horror. Oh, we haven't done one of these since Alien or Event Horizon.
Yeah. And this one goes back in time a little bit. It's Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
I have to say, I've not seen this one. I've seen the video cover, the VHS cover for it.
It is a VHS cover, so it gives you a bit of context of the timing.
It has imagery of it, which is of the time.
Definitely
thinking
of the 80s.
Gremlins, Critters, Ghoulies.
That's what I'm thinking too. So
none of these things. So it'll be interesting to see.
I haven't seen it either myself. I do know of it and probably should have seen it. I definitely know it's available on Amazon, so you can check it out there. It might be on other streaming services. Go Google it, find it. And it was at my local VHS shop.
Yes.
Until next time.
Next time, see ya.
Bye.